Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this week's Billiken Sports Report. We will look at the opening game of the Billiken men's basketball season on Tuesday night. Billiken struggled at times during its exhibition game on Tuesday against Cardinal Stritch University. Brian Conklin scored 17 points on 8 of 8 shooting to lead St. Louis to a 73-53 exhibition win over Cardinal Stritch Tuesday night at the Chaffetz Arena. Kyle Cassidy and Rob Lowe tallied 11 and 10 points respectively for the Billikens, whose 60% shooting effort, which was 30 of 50, included 23 of 27 in two-point shooting. Cassidy was 5 of 6 from the field, while Lowe's scoring total include a pair of three-pointers. Dwayne Evans, 3 of 3 field goal, scored 8 points and gathered a game-high 7 rebounds and had a team-high 3 assists. St. Louis hosts NCAA Division II Nova Southeastern Saturday, November 6th. The game time is at Chaffetz, 7 p.m. Now let's move on to a little bit of Billiken's men's soccer team. While they are approaching the conference championship, St. Louis freshman forward Adnan Gabajic scored early in overtime to lift the Billikens to a 2-1 victory against Missouri, Kansas City Tuesday in non-conference men's soccer action at Robert R. Herman Stadium here at St. Louis University. Estes registered his third goal of the season at 34 minutes. Newport lofted a perfect ball off a corner kick, and Estes headed it into the back of the net to give the Billikens a 1-0 lead. UMKC forced overtime after benefiting from an own goal in the 66th minute. Gabajic's goal game at 92 with junior Biao Bellamy assisting sophomore Benny Estes got the Bills on the board. On Friday's game, St. Louis's Benny Estes, Alex Sweeten, and Mike Roach all scored second-half goals to propel the Billikens to a 3-0 Atlantic 10 Conference men's soccer victory against Temple. Mike Roach, being in his first game back in action of the year after missing the Bills' first 13 games due to injury, made it a 3-0 lead with a tally at the 88th minute. On Sunday, St. Louis scored 3 first-half goals en route to a 3-0 Atlantic 10 Conference men's soccer victory against St. Joseph's. SLU concludes the regular season next weekend with 2 games at Herman Stadium. The Billikens host Rhode Island Friday, November 5th at 7 p.m. and then UMass Sunday, November 7th at 2 p.m. On Sunday, October 31st, the Billikens women's soccer team concluded the season with a 2-2 draw against the St. Joseph's in Philadelphia. Senior Emily Kreiser and junior Jasmine Sojic scored goals in the last game, and St. Louis concluded the 2010 campaign 4-9-6 overall and 3-5-1 in the Atlantic 10 Conference play. St. Louis women's basketball will now host Missouri State, St. Louis, and Rockhurst, both members of the NCAA division, in Great Lakes Valley Conference in exhibition action this week at Chaffetz Arena. UMSL makes the crosstown trip Thursday, November 4th for a 7 p.m. contest, while Rockhurst travels from Kansas City for a 2 p.m. tip-off Sunday, November 7th. The St. Louis volleyball team takes on Duquesne Friday, November 5th at 7 p.m. in Chaffetz Pavilion in a matchup of teams tied for second place in the Atlantic 10 Conference standings. Friday is also Senior Day, and Megan Boken will be honored before the contest. The Billikens travel to Fordham Sunday, November 7th for a 1 p.m. Central Time matchup. Now moving on to the Billiken profile. Each week we do a different profile that highlights a different St. Louis University athlete. This week's Billiken profile, we are presenting head volleyball player Megan Boken. This week's Billiken profile took us over to the Chaffetz Pavilion, where we met up with Megan Boken of the St. Louis University women's volleyball team. Megan is a 5'11" senior from Wheaton, Illinois, and is majoring in business administration. St. Louis University women's volleyball has a strong winning tradition with a history of great team chemistry. During Megan's time at SLU, the women's volleyball team has had great success, not only because of star players, but because of team unity.
The girls also seemed to get along really well. They had a good chemistry, and I kind of just wanted to go somewhere where it felt right, and it kind of felt like a good fit for me.
This year's women's volleyball team faces bigger challenges than they have had to face in recent years because of a very young team that they are putting on the court.
Like, we're such a young team. We have so many freshmen and sophomores, and we've been trying out different lineups, and so like this is like our last preseason tournament, and I think we're starting to finally hit our stride, whereas before we kind of had our unit, like we knew we were going to do from the beginning, but now we're just kind of like figuring it out and like going from there. So we're in a good place right now, though, so it's good.
This year's main challenge for Megan is being the only senior on the team. Responsibility needs to be an intricate part of her game this year.
Well, I try and just be, like a leader for the girls, or, if they need someone to talk to, I'm trying to be there for them. And just since, I've been around and I know, the drill, I try and, just like keep it consistent and, help them out if they need something, and just kind of like be a steady on the court too, since, I've been there.
Even with this being a young team, there is great hope for the future with the current young and talented roster. Megan knows that these players will contribute greatly this year and will have great potential in the future.
Gosh, everyone's so good. Like, everyone, is going to have their chance. And Alyssa Dino is a junior, and she's my roommate, actually, and she's awesome. She's doing so good this year, and so she'll be a senior next year. And then Carly Markham is a sophomore, and she's in the middle, and she's been doing real well, like her blocking, her hitting, everything like that. She has so much, potential. She's going to do awesome. And then I think Hannah Kavitli, she's our freshman setter, and she's been doing awesome. And being the setter is like a really tough position, and there's a lot of, stress on you and pressure, and she's been handling it so well, and she's just a freshman, so I think she's only going to get better from here. So,
one of the main factors in a successful team is leadership from the head coach position. Megan clearly knows that this presence is felt on the women's volleyball team.
She's awesome. Like, the main thing is she just cares about us so much, and she just wants us to succeed in, every aspect of our life. Like, she works so hard for us, in practice and scouting and everything, and she wants us to do good on the court, but also she understands, we're students too. We also, need to have time to study, and she also wants us to have a social life. She wants us to be able to interact with other people, and enjoy the whole college experience. So it's been awesome. She's great.
Megan has great expectations for not only herself, but also every one of her teammates.
For my team, I think that we're just, right now, as I said, we're ending preseason, and right now we're kind of hitting our stride. And so I think for the rest of the season, we want to kind of work off that and keep building. And since we're so young, too, we have, our learning curve, we can get so much better, with every week. And, so I think we just want to keep building, towards the end of the season when it really counts, conference tournament and hopefully NCAAs and things like that. And I guess as an individual, I just want to be, a leader on the court and off the court, and, be steady and consistent.
Megan is obviously an incredible leader on and off the court. She's made it very obvious that it is not only volleyball that she cares about, but also her peers. Be sure to look out for Megan and all of her teammates at every home match at Chaffetz Arena and Chaffetz Pavilion. And that was our Billiken profile this weekend with Megan Boken.
Coming up next, we're going to have a Rams talk. We're going to break down Panthers game and have a little Randy Moss talk as well. Join us back in a bit. We can do
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it because we're touching over your break.
Yeah. A little bit like what was.
Oh! Oh, do you just need? I just changed it. Once again of the Billiken Sports Report. Thank you for joining us after that quick commercial break. I'm Willie McKenna once again, and this is
Will Deisley. Glad to have you guys back with us.
Absolutely. We're gonna start out with a little NFL talk, as you can see right now. Obviously, the Rams have been playing much better than originally assumed this season. It's going to be Week 9 when they play again. Right now they have a bye week, and they're going to be preparing for San Francisco. Will, give me a quick breakdown of what you've seen the Rams do this season and why they've been more successful rather than the past 3 seasons where they've had a combined total of maybe 5 wins in the past 3 years.
Well, I guess part of it's going to have to go with Sam Bradford. Sam Bradford's really a fantastic quarterback. It's a great draft choice by Spags and Stan Kroenke, and it's coming from the organization too. They got a lot of good coaches on their staff. They're really getting the players into it. They're really getting everyone behind them. And the offense and the defenses are clicking. Defense has got fantastic red zone protection. They're not really giving up too many big points right there. And their offense is really clicking as well. Bradford's putting up good numbers. Jackson's always fantastic in the running back, and we might have a little bit of trouble with the wide receiver core, but we're doing pretty good so far. I guess as opposed from the last season, it's we would expect Rams to score maybe 10 points in like 3 games. Well, they're putting up 20, 30 points, 17 points.
Really, those past couple seasons, yeah, exactly. And those past couple seasons, when we've had Mark Bulger as the quarterback, it's been a struggle to even have 100 passing yards out of a quarterback. And not to diss Mark Bulger, he was a great quarterback coming into the league. He had one of the best quarterback ratings of all time at one point in his not short career with the Rams. He had a pretty extensive career after he took over for Kurt Warner. But those are big shoes to fill. For those of you who haven't been necessarily keeping up with the 2010 Rams this season, let's do a quick recap of where they've come from at the beginning of this season. First of all, the season started out at home here at the Edward Jones Dome against the Arizona Cardinals, NFC West division rivals.
Yeah, big rival there.
That was a tough game. That was a really tough game. I know coming into this season, Rams fans didn't necessarily have a whole lot of expectations, and I think, in the preseason they went 3-1, but they had done that the previous couple years as well. They had won some really good games in the preseason and looked decent. So, that didn't mean a whole lot to the Rams fans, who are pretty loyal considering the amount of wins that they've had the past couple years. But starting off with this Arizona game, that was a big loss to them. That was a big hit. 17-13. They had plenty of opportunities in that game to take the lead. None bigger than fumbling the ball on a fumble return.
I think it was on the 1 yard line.
On the 1 yard line.
I was at that game, fortunately, and I was watching it, and it was such a big blow to see that happen. We just thought, Rams fans thought, oh, we're going to be in for another one of those years again. But, they bounced back a couple games after. But, big loss there against the Arizona Cardinals. So it's difficult to see that. But they bounced back 2 games later, I think. It was...
right, yeah, 2 games later. They went away to Oakland first. And another heartbreaking game. They come into that game, and once again, they're winning at halftime, which they did in the Arizona game, which was a huge surprise to see, just to even have a lead in these games. That was a big advantage. They come into that game. They end up losing it as a final result, 16-14 in Oakland. And what was particularly tough about this game is the starting quarterback for Oakland was removed after the first half because of the lack of offensive production he was having. They brought in Janikowski, the backup, and he lit it up. He absolutely lit it up, and he lit the Rams' defense up. And once again, another really tough loss. But what was encouraging about both of these games was the small margin that they lost by. Yeah, obviously, we hadn't seen that at all last season.
It was only about 5 points for the first 2 losses. So
right.
I mean, it's not like the Rams were blown out. Definitely, they were. They've been in contention. They've been putting up good points so far, and their defense hasn't been too bad this year. So it's really good to see that. Back from horrible season last year. So
the most encouraging thing I have to say though is the fan base. In that Arizona game, you had a big sellout, absolutely packed sellout. Not one of the sellouts where you just sell enough to get on TV like the NFL requires, but this was a legitimate sellout.
It sort of reminded me of back in like the 98 or 99, 2000.
Exactly, back in the glory days of the Rams.
Back in the Super Bowl days. Those were
right, so
games.
It's really great to see this fan base coming back out and supporting their team, and they've done this the past, every home game this year has been televised by the NFL, which for the Rams is a pretty big accomplishment because the last 3 or so home games last season were not sold out, and the fan base, even if they couldn't make it to the game, they weren't able to watch their team on TV either because they had not sold enough tickets. But after that Oakland game, you referred to it next, they came back home and played a very tough team in the Washington Redskins with a quarterback such as Donovan McNabb and the legendary, I guess you could say, coach Mike Shanahan, depending on how you view him. You have a lot of big stars on that team, and the Rams came in and absolutely blew them out 30-16.
Definitely, and that was fantastic to see, really. Just Bradford and Jackson on offense clicking, putting up 30 points against what usually is a very consistent Redskins defense. So it was very good to see that, everyone meshing together, and it was a good win for the Rams. They really needed that win because they boost their season up and not go into another slide like last season. So it was good to see that. And then I think next week or the week after that, they came in and put up another impressive win against the Seattle Seahawks.
Right, and that was a big game.
That was a huge game.
Because they are also NFC West division foes, you could say, who basically, looking at the schedule right now, will be fighting it out for the rest of the season. The Rams are currently predicted, they're the 40% favorites to win the NFC West right now, which I don't think any of us could have predicted at the beginning of the season.
I would certainly have not have predicted that.
I know that Will and I, we talked a little bit. I think we basically expected the Rams to maybe put together a 4 or 5 win season. And that we would have been happy with that. We would have been happy with taking another year of a big draft pick. You know, we get Sam Bradford. And that's another piece of the Rams organization. I'm jumping around a little bit here, but there's so much to talk about with this team, and it's so exciting. But with the new ownership, the new head coach, they've made some really nice decisions in the draft. Obviously, Sam Bradford, he was basically a lock to be taken overall. But you had Ndamukong Suh, who was taken by Detroit. And some Rams fans in analysis were calling for the Rams to take Suh. My biggest problem with that was you don't build a franchise against a defensive lineman.
No, you can't. I mean, you know, part of the game comes from the quarterback. It's got to come from the quarterback. It's got to. He's the one who centers the game. He's the one who drives, you know, field players down the field. I mean, he's the core of the team, and you can't build a franchise player with a defensive player.
Right. No matter how good he is.
No, you can't.
No doubt, Suh is going to be one of the best defensive linemen in the years down the road.
That's
not what the Rams need.
You don't want to organize or structure your team around a defensive player. You want to have an offensive player who knows what to do and who really is, you know, at the heart of the entire team too. So. And
the great part about Bradford is he doesn't just show that he's a good player. He makes everyone around him a better player.
Oh yeah, definitely.
He's definitely going to be boosting Steven Jackson's season. Now, Steven Jackson in the last game against Carolina, he only had 56 rushing yards. But also, you have to keep in mind, he had 3 pins in his finger from surgery that he had
with one hand.
With one hand. He had surgery on the Monday after the game. So I think that Steven Jackson has been an incredible leader on this team as well.
Oh, by far.
He's shown all these young guys, including Sam Bradford. He's still a rookie, we have to remember. He's shown him how to go out there and play. You don't even if you're injured, you go out there and you help your team, especially when you're in a playoff race, such as what the Rams are in. Now, sure, some people make the argument NFC West worst division in football. Obviously, they are.
It's one of them.
Possibly one of the worst divisions in NFL history for this season. They're historically bad, this division.
Yeah, it's not unreal to say that you can make the playoffs with a 7-9 record in this division.
Yeah, absolutely. You could be under 500 to make the playoffs in this division. But, moving on. After that Seattle win, they went to Detroit, and to me, this is when the season changed for the Rams. I thought that this could have been basically the beginning of the end for the season. They go in and they get, Detroit had no wins, and they have had worse seasons really than the Rams almost the past couple of seasons. But they come in and they get spanked by Detroit, 44-6. I honestly, to this day, I still don't know what happened to him. I do not know what went wrong in that game.
I think it was just a breakdown of, all the core players. I mean, offense wasn't clicking, defense was, not doing what they were supposed to. I think, they weren't really listening to the coaches. They're coming off that big win, which is surprising to have them lose by such a big margin. But, I guess it just was not clicking for them that game. And no one was behind the staff, no one was behind, what Bradford was telling them, and no one was on the defensive side. No one really showed up to play. But it's unfortunate to see that happen, especially against the Lions.
And that is the game that the Rams lost wide receiver Mark Clayton, who had basically come into the #1 wide receiving role for the Rams. So that was a big loss, and I know that set down the morale of the team, but also they needed to bounce back in that game. That was also one of Bradford's worst games up until a couple weeks later in Tampa Bay. But after that Detroit game, after that huge loss, they come back, they play San Diego, they beat them by 3. San Diego, one of the best teams, obviously almost every year picked to go to the playoffs.
Definitely.
Sometimes even picked to go to the Super Bowl at the beginning of the season. And, the Rams come in and they prove that they can beat any team in the league. The San Diego Chargers came in as one of the best pass teams in the league.
First-rated pass team, and I think it was the second-rated defense in the entire league.
Yeah, they absolutely a great team.
And to see the Rams just put up the numbers against them, it's fantastic to see that. I mean, I can't say anything more about it.
Yeah, an incredible game.
I would have never expected.
And that's been one of the big complications for the Rams this year is the difference between the way they play at home and the way they play on the
Yeah,
road.
they're very consistent at home. 4-1 record, I think, at home, and not so consistent on the road. They got to get better, and they're going to learn to do that on the road. Because if you a good football team is dependent on how you win on the road, and I think that's going to be the driving force for the rest of their season. Really trying to get the wins on the road and be more consistent for that.
Right, and if the Rams do want to make the playoffs, they have to play well on the road because they have a heavily road-favored schedule the second half here. But yeah, we went into Tampa Bay then after that big San Diego win, and we lose the game with about 5 to 10 seconds left in that one, 18-17.
That was a heartbreaking
Huge loss for the Rams. That was one of the toughest ones. But also, we were talking about this, Will and I, on our radio show yesterday. That was one of the character-building wins, or losses, for the Rams, I think.
Yeah, it had to be, because, when you're up 17-6 at halftime like that, you think, hey, we got this lead, we're going to be fine. Just keep playing consistent throughout the rest of the half. Well, obviously the Rams didn't do that. You got to show up and play 4 quarters of football. And the Rams did not do that. It was a very tough loss for the Rams. But yeah, it was a character builder. They learned from it. They knew that, this is what we got to do as a team. This is what we got to do together. And then, let's move on and let's do it.
Right. So after that big loss in Tampa Bay, they come back home and they play the Carolina Panthers. This was this past Sunday. They beat the Carolina Panthers 20-10, as they should have. The Carolina Panthers are one of the bottom-ranked teams in the league with only 2 wins on the season for them. So they're not one of the best teams. One win, actually.
1-6 right now.
1-6 for the Carolina Panthers. One of the worst teams in the league, but at the same time, we thought the same thing about Detroit.
Definitely.
And these Detroit and Carolinas do not necessarily play like 1 or 2 win teams right now. They actually are. They have decent defense on them.
Panthers aren't playing like a 1-6 team. They're playing consistently. They're not, the Lions are playing better than they're a 2-5 team, obviously. So it's not like the Rams are playing against bad teams. Their records might show it, but the teams that they're playing are still pretty consistent on the offensive and the defensive side. So.
Right, and Sam Bradford did have in his short career, his best game against Carolina, which is great to see. He had almost 200 passing yards once again. Yeah. And even with the problems, injuries that we've had with Steven Jackson, he still went out there, gained 56 yards. And even having Jackson on the field is a big component in that offense because he's always a threat to break a big one down the field and go in for the touchdown. And not to mention, he's one of the best blocking running backs in the league to protect Bradford back there.
Definitely.
So Steven Jackson has a lot of upside, even if he's not producing a lot of yards or touchdowns in a game. But the Rams go into their bye week now. I want to go into a little bit of predictions right now. The Rams are going into their bye week, and the San Francisco 49ers are going into their bye week. By the way, San Francisco played Denver in London last week, so maybe a little bit of fatigue could play into this game.
It's possible.
Keeping your fingers crossed for the
I would
Rams.
hope so.
But so we have a bye week coming up this Sunday, and then the following week we're going to be in San Francisco against the 49ers. Now, Will, I know that we've talked about this quite a bit. This has been one of the games I've been really nervous about because I think this is make it or break it this coming week for the Rams.
This is going to determine, I guess, where the Rams go for the rest of the season. This is a must-win for the Rams. They have to get this victory out, especially on the road. I think this is really going to determine where their season goes. If they're going to go contend for a playoff spot, or they're going to slide down into the bottom ranking of the league. So, a must-win for here. Everyone's got to show up to play, especially on the road. It's a crucial victory that they need.
Now, even though San Francisco is at the bottom of the league or at the bottom of the West Division with 2 wins, they're still a threat to come back in this one.
Oh, definitely.
San Francisco's not a bad team. They have definitely underachieved, though, and that's been their biggest problem this season.
Yeah, they were. Coming up, looking at the team, they were predicted to win their division, and they're predicted to make the playoffs and make a run at the Super Bowl. So it's unfortunate to see them, not playing as well as they should have. Underachieving as usual. Mike Singletary's got a lot of bit of work to do with the team, but they're not horrible. They're not like the Bills, I think.
Yeah, they're not like the Buffalo Bills.
But they're playing somewhat okay. As far as their records.
Now, the biggest problem really with San Francisco, which they've rectified, they're putting Troy Smith in. I don't know if I would say rectified. They're trying to rectify.
Alex Smith really wasn't the best.
Alex Smith is not a starting quarterback in this league. He's a bit of a bust, I'd say.
Yeah.
But I think that the Rams are really going to have to come into this game strong. They have to come in. They have to. The key to this game is getting that early lead and sticking with it. Yeah. They've been great in the first half of the season. I mean, in the first half of games this season. They just need to finish these games off, and that's their biggest problem right now is their second half scoring and their second half defense. So if they're able to keep that together against San Francisco, I think they can win this one and get their first road victory as well.
I think they can too. I believe it's true. So.
All right, Will and I are going to take a quick break. Then we're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit of Randy Moss, and we're also going to talk about the Donovan McNabb and Mike Shanahan dilemma over in Washington. So we'll be back in just a few minutes for this quick commercial break.
We can do like.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about it. We'll cut to commercial break.
Yeah. We'll do like one.
do you just need? I just changed it.
Me and Willie just got done talking about a little bit of Rams season right now. We're going to move into the what you guys hopefully have seen so far if you've been following sports. Randy Moss, about a week ago actually, was waived off of the Minnesota Vikings team, and it was in limbo for right now. And then yesterday, Tennessee Titans claimed him to pick him up on his team. So, what do you think How do you think this is gonna move on to the Titans season, and how is it gonna impact Randy Moss so far?
There's obviously a lot of different ways you can look at this Randy Moss acquisition for the Tennessee Titans. Now, mind you, Randy Moss started the season with the New England Patriots, who he'd been on for the past couple years. Basically, the reason he was released from New England was because of his comments about basically the New England Patriots organization being stingy with their money and not liking to pay their players for their contract extensions. So those comments basically led to his release, or not release, but trade to the Minnesota Vikings. He goes to the Minnesota Vikings, the team that he was originally drafted by out of Marshall College, and he plays 4 games there. Obviously, Brett Favre was one of the impact guys to bring him there. He had always wanted to play with Randy back when he was in Green Bay, never got the opportunity. So Brett Favre was a big component in bringing him to Minnesota. Later on, Brad Childress said that it was a mistake to bring him there. Of course, hindsight's 20/20, so obviously he would say that. But we'll get into Brad Childress later.
We'll get into that a little bit later.
But then he's put on the waiver wire. And many thought that the St. Louis Rams would have the top pick for him, which they did. They were number 13 on the waiver wire. For those of you who do not know how the waiver wire works, what it is each team is listed in chronological order from worst record to best record at that point in the season. So obviously the Buffalo Bills had the first shot at him. The St. Louis Rams were number 13 on that waiver wire list. They were the only team that was still in playoff contention with a record at 500 or above. They were the first team who would have the opportunity to pick him up and basically would want to pick him up because they would still have to owe him $3 million for next season.
Yeah.
So a lot of people thought that he was going to end up with the Rams. Instead, he ends up with the Tennessee Titans. Jeff Fisher, coach of the Tennessee Titans, had conversations with Brad Childress, and Coach Fisher has been on record saying that in not so many words, that if Randy Moss pulls what he's been pulling in Minnesota and New England, he's out. They're just going to release him. And I like that. I think Randy Moss needs to stop acting like a spoiled brat and just play the game of football. Nobody cares what he has to say. Nobody cares what he has to say.
Jeff Fisher's a really no-nonsense type of coach. He's really, get in, just do your job, get out. Don't really, don't get media attention like that. Randy Moss has always been about, how much public attention can I get? How much, attention can I get?
And he's been like that since college.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to see that. I mean, he's a very fantastic player. He's a great receiver at his job, but, he garners too much attention outside of the field. And, it's good to see that Jeff Fisher doesn't want to see that type of attitude in his organization. And I think it'll be good for Randy Moss. Maybe it'll get him to, get going and really get some big plays again, like he was back when he was first drafted. So that'd be fantastic to see so far.
Now, I hope that his production goes up in Tennessee.
So do I.
My biggest fear, though, if a guy can't be productive with one of the best quarterbacks in the league currently, Tom Brady on the New England Patriots, and he can't be productive with what was one of the best quarterbacks in Brett Favre, who's still an above-average quarterback even at his age. If you can't be productive with him, how are you going to be productive with a guy like Vince Young, who's been plagued with injuries his entire career so far, the couple years he's been in the league, and then an older guy like Kerry Collins, who has basically been a backup his entire career up until a few years ago with the Titans? How are you productive with either of those quarterbacks? I just don't see it happening.
I don't see it either, and I think it's part of the whole Moss thing. He's really a timid player, I think. I mean, he's got great size and everything to him, but he doesn't go over the middle. He doesn't go for the deep ball. I mean, he'll break off routes occasionally. I mean, that's just not something you want, especially with, plagued Vince Young injuries. Kerry Collins hasn't been starting that much lately. So you want a player who's very consistent on each level. And I'm not sure if the Titans are the right fit for Randy Moss, but I think they're going to have a tough time, meshing together, I think.
Absolutely. I absolutely think so. My analysis is I think Randy Moss's best option would have been to come to St. Louis and have a young quarterback in Sam Bradford. I think that they could have put up some huge numbers here and maybe show a little reminiscent of the greatest show on turf. I don't know,
maybe.
But my biggest problem with him is his attitude in the locker room. This is a very young team, very young coaching staff, and most of all, very young quarterback. I don't think you want that influence and that negative energy coming into these guys' young careers.
Definitely
the Rams
not.
have a good thing that they're building right now, and they don't need guys like Randy Moss as a leader in that clubhouse. You have a guy like Steven Jackson who goes about his business each and every week, keeps his mouth closed to the media, and leads by example. Those are the kind of leaders that you want on your team. You don't want the guys like Randy Moss who go and yell at caterers for the food that they're bringing and go and bash their coach and their teammates on camera.
Yeah, and the Rams are a restructuring organization. They're rebuilding, and part of the fact that they didn't want Randy Moss is he's old. He's 33 years old right now. They had a chance to get Westbrook, I think, in the beginning of the season as well. But the problem that they didn't want those, they're old. They want players who are young. They want players who are know what they're doing. They want players who don't garner so much attention, so they can give positive influence to Bradford. Jackson's one of those players who's able to do that. He's flown under the radar, but he's really a seasoned veteran in that
Absolutely.
sense. So they want players who can give good attention to the support to the other players and really bring what they need their style to the play. So
now after this season, I do expect the Rams to go out in the free agent market and pick up some big players.
They have to. They got to spend some money or get something going.
Yeah, they really do, especially in the wide receiver position. You've had Mark Clayton, who was your number one, go down. You've had Donnie Avery, who was your number one, go down. And you also had Dominique Curry, who's a legitimate wide receiver, go down as well. The Rams have had plenty of injuries on the wide receiver side of the ball. So that's a spot that they're definitely going to have to fill because you have one of the best up-and-coming quarterbacks in the league right now, and he needs some targets to throw to.
Definitely.
I'm absolutely amazed. He's been able to consistently throw almost 200 yards a game with basic no-names. You have guys like Danny Amendola, who was signed off of the Philadelphia Eagles practice squad. Not necessarily one of the big names you go out and get. You have Laurent Robinson, Brandon Gibson,
Denario
Alexander, who
went down with a knee injury, unfortunately.
Undrafted rookie.
Yeah, but he was a great player for what he played in so far. But Bradford's been putting up great numbers so far with, like you said, no-name or receiver players. So it's really good. I'm very happy for him to see that happening. It's good as a Rams fan, and from my standpoint, to see that happening as well.
Absolutely. So to sum it up, St. Louis, I know a lot of the fans are disappointed maybe in not bringing some of these big names such as Randy Moss and Terrell Owens and Brian Westbrook, to the Rams, but I think that this was the right move for them. I know I was a little bit disappointed. I would have loved to see him here, but I think as an organization, they're moving it in the right direction, and they don't need that kind of energy in the locker room.
Definitely not.
Will and I are going to take one more quick break, and then we'll be back to wrap up the rest of the show.
We can do
you don't have to worry about it because we're touching commercial break.
Yeah. A little bit like
Oh, do you just need? I just changed it.
Alright, let's do this.
All right, welcome back to the very first edition of the Billiken Sports Report. So far, we've talked about the Rams and the signing of Randy Moss by the Tennessee Titans. Now we're going to move into one of the big sports headlines here, the World Series. Obviously, for those of you who don't know, the Giants, San Francisco Giants, have ended their 54-year drought of no championship, and they bring their very first World Series title to San Francisco.
It's great to see that. Long time coming for them. You know, really outplaying the Texas Rangers. You know, very well-deserved win, in my opinion. I just want to talk about Cliff Lee really quick. What do you think happened to him in the first and the last game that he played? I mean,
you know, it's
coming off that amazing, you know, postseason and regular season play. I mean, he just fell apart in the World Series. I mean,
the thing is statistically, Cliff Lee has been one of the best postseason pitchers of all time. He's been absolutely dominant in the postseason, especially this year. But you look back to when he was on Cleveland as well with CC Sabathia, that great Cleveland Indians team. I wouldn't say great. They got beat by the Yankees that year. But they were a good Cleveland Indians team, and he was great back then as well. He's historically, like I said, been one of the best postseason pitchers, and he had this collapse in the World Series. I don't know.
It's uncharacteristic.
Absolutely uncharacteristic. It could have been, you know, maybe the Giants had seen enough film of him. Maybe they've seen him enough throughout the postseason to know what he was going to bring to the table.
Definitely possible.
And the thing that's the most confusing to me about this, San Francisco was not exactly one of the worst offensive teams, but they were very midline to average offensively.
Yeah, definitely.
And out of nowhere, they burst onto the scene in the World Series and the rest of the postseason, and they absolutely dominated on the offensive side.
They put up, I think, it was 11-7 in the first game, and then 9-0 second game. It's really offensive, just pure power from there. And I'm just surprised that you know, they were able to do that with such a mediocre offense as themselves.
Right.
And especially against Cliff Lee, who was in my opinion should have been done a whole lot better, but unfortunately, and obviously that didn't happen. But
and another guy you can't forget about in this whole scheme of things is Edgar Renteria.
Oh yeah.
Edgar Renteria has been very clutch in the postseason. You go back to his days with the Marlins. Back in 2003 when they won the World Series. He had one of the game-winning hits in that series as well, and now he's also World Series MVP with the Giants. He was also fairly clutch when he was here with the Cardinals in 2004, even though the Cardinals went on to lose that World Series. He had some big hits in that series as well. So Edgar Renteria, always a consistent postseason player, and you know, this is probably one of his last seasons. He's been around the league.
So. He's been around
quite a bit.
96, 97 or
yeah,
something like that. So.
He's one of the veterans in this league out of Columbia. Very good shortstop player.
Yeah,
so
fantastic player.
I think if he ends up going out on top, I think that's great, and I'm really glad to see that he got that final World Series ring. Now he's got two to flash off to everybody.
He
so
certainly does. So congratulations to the Giants for their victory right there. Well deserved, long coming for them. It was good to see them, pull off a victory and everything. So.
And you can't underestimate the Texas Rangers. Great team, and I think they're going to be great for the next, couple years down the road.
Got a good squad of players behind them. Cliff Lee hopefully will be back.
I think he will, but I think Cliff Lee will re-sign with the Texas Rangers.
He's still a fantastic player despite his performance in the World Series. So they're going to have a good team next year. I think I don't know if they're another World Series run, but they're going to go maybe deep into the postseason. And
they are in one of the weaker divisions in that American League West.
So that'll add to it. So I mean, they'll be back next year. Don't write them off yet. So
absolutely. Well, for Will Deichley, I'm Willie McKenna. We're going to go ahead and end our very first edition of the Billiken Sports Report. Remember to tune in on SLU radio station. Will and I have our own show every Wednesday night from 5:30 to 6:30, so go ahead and check that out. And if you guys have any questions or anything that you want us to talk about on our upcoming radio or TV shows, go ahead and email me at wmckenna@slu.edu. We'd love to hear from you and all your feedback.
All right, thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you next time.